So I put out a YouTube short and a couple other places on social media where I asked, do we want to do a control cavity that is got a little bit of contrast in it, so like a nice pattern like this. It's actually the opposite side is what we're going to see. Or something that blends right in. And pretty much overwhelmingly, folks went for the show some contrast. So this is the piece of wood that we're going to do. We're going to try and align the top of this sort of with this top grain line here, get that straight, and we're going to tape that down. We're going to rough cut to shape, clean it up on the router, and then do the recesses for the magnets. One of the challenges on something like this where the grain is kind of very all over the place and maybe hard to figure out what is like sort of the straight line here is, you know, it's hard to kind of figure out where you want to do the template. So what I try and do is, for example, I've got a pretty good straight line down here, but that doesn't necessarily help me for the, you know, the top of the straight line on my control cavity template. So what I like to do is I'll run the line and then figure out about where I need to go. And in this case, I need to be about 2.5 inches off that straight line to give me, you know, about where I want to be. So I've marked 2 spots here that are 2.5 inches off my straight line. And then I will align the top of the template with those marks. And now I should be fairly even with how the grain of this control cavity is going to look. So when we're going across the grain, this limbug does get very splintery. So in this case, I've given myself a little bit more border towards the ends versus where I was ripping along the grain. All right, now we need to do the recesses for the magnets. And when we did this on the body, we did this with a Forstner bit. But if we use a Forstner bit on here, the tip's gonna poke right through the side. So we don't really wanna do that. So what I've got in here is a 1/4 inch upcut bit, router bit. And we're going to use that to cut our hole. It's not entirely flat, so we're actually going to have to go at it with a little bit of a knife afterwards to flatten out the bottom. But we'll go in here, we will bottom out on our material, and then kick up our depth stop just 1/16 of an inch. And that should get us a nice hole. Now we won't be able to tell until we get to turn off or pull off the template. All right. Let's grab a couple magnets and see how we look. And we're actually probably a little bit deeper than we need to be, but that will be okay. So here's what our control cavity is going to look like. maybe not as happy with this as I was hoping I would be. Kind of wonder if maybe I should, I've got some more pieces, so I could redo this. Maybe reverse this so that this kind of reef thing here follows this curve a bit. And that might be a more interesting way to do this. So we might be building a second one of these. Additionally, what I need to do is cut the fingernail so that you can get up in here and pop it open. So what I'm going to do for that is just take a little pencil mark. Here's where I'm going to do it. I'll take a little bit of a dowel, wrap it in some sandpaper, do a little channel here, do a little channel here, and I'll be able to get my fingernail up underneath there to pop the cover open when I need to get in here. All right, I've thought about it a little bit more and definitely going to redo this. So what I've done now is this is the template that I use to do the hole. And I can't really perfectly visualize it, but it does give me a little bit better. This is what my control cavity is going to look like, but I'm actually going to get this side, which should bring a little bit more, like the grain is trending in this direction. So I should get a little bit more of this color here. And I think this will look a little bit better. So because of the way I need to drop this template in here, whoops, and I taped the wrong side of it. The idea is that I will kind of figure out where I want to be and then drop this in here with the tape on it. And then that should give me a pretty decent visualization of what I want. All right, I am fairly aligned with the grain or where I think I want it to be. Drop the template in the hole. And now we're going to do the same thing we did before and then hopefully get something that will. So this is the direction that it'll be. Yeah, I think that that's going to work out a little bit better. All right, let's do this again. And yeah, that looks cooler. Happier with that. We'll keep moving forward there. I think I'm going to try something a little bit different than what I usually do. So I did mention that that router bit is not quite flat on the bottom. So I have basically gone in here and scraped out sort of the high spot. And this is deep enough that the magnets will sit in there not even flush. Like there's a little bit of a space there. And what I usually do is I just come in here and I glue them in with a little dab of super glue, but the magnets are quite visible. I think as an experiment with this one, I'm going to try and completely cover them with the black super glue. That might take a little while, a couple of applications and maybe, a little bit longer to dry. But especially with this Limba, I think that will look pretty cool. So I do need to come in here and make sure that these are all cleaned out of dust. But let's do that. Giving it a quick vacuum. I do want to make sure that these all go in the same. So we'll have to be careful of that. Let's put just a little drop in first around the bottom. And then boop, boop. Boop. Okay. So next, Those are all well seated in there. Put a little bit on top to fill the hole. I think we're probably going to have to let this dry and then come back and keep working at it until we're flush. All right. Yeah, I think that'll look pretty cool. Well, that one really soaked. It's not soaking through, is it? Nope. Okay. All right. Let's let that go and we'll come back to it later. Okay, it took a few days of repeated put a drop in, let it dry, put a drop in, let it dry, to get up to nearly surface level with this, black super glue as a filler. I'm actually fairly happy with the results. So on the cover itself, I just used the black super glue, and you can see there's some bleeding here where it got, wicked in through the grain and sort of spread a little bit. So it's not very pretty, or not as pretty as I'd hoped. In the body, what I did was I basically did the same thing, but that first coat, what I did was I used clear super glue and I kind of swished it around in the hole and tried to fill in the pores, and I think it did a much better job of keeping the black from spreading outside the hole. Now, it's not perfect, but I feel this is something with a little bit of practice could become, like a really nice technique. So I'm gonna continue trying to do this on future builds and see how well it goes. The reworked cover looks great there. I'm very happy with that. And that's about it for this one. So if you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, comment below, you know the drill, and we'll see you at the next one.